Hey guys, and welcome to today's video where we'll be talking about what tank size a Crested Gecko needs, as well as how to fill up that area so there's lots of places to climb and hide, and also how to ensure your gecko uses all of that space. So the minimum size for a juvenile to adult Crested Gecko is this size tank. So this is the one I have for my Chihuahua. It is 45 by 45 by 60 centimeters tall, also known as the Exoterra Small Tall. Now, I've never had a hatchling Crested Gecko, so I've never had one that's sort of under 6 months old to begin with. So this is a size tank that's worked well for me for geckos that are 6 months old or older. Okay, so they could just go straight into this. And this could technically do for throughout your gecko's adult life, but you can always go bigger. Just like the tank I have for Lyra here. So my Crested Gecko Lyra lives in a 60 by 45 by 60 centimeter tank, also known as the Exoterra Medium Tall. Now I'll leave links to these tanks below. I also have a 10% discount code, so you can save a little extra. Everyone loves to save. And obviously you don't have to get Exoterra ones. These are just the ones I've always used. But basically, this tank Lyra lives in is wonderful and she uses every single part of it. I couldn't imagine downgrading her to a 45 by 45 by 60 centimeter. Like, I want to upgrade Drogo's tank to this size as well, so we have two of them. If you do have the room and you do have the money to afford this bigger tank, then I would definitely recommend it. I was quite lucky because when I got Lyra, she came with this tank. She came from a previous owner, and she was sold with the tank, so quite a bonus for me, but I definitely love this size tank. Equally though, you can go bigger. There's also a 60 by 45 by 90 centimeter tank. It's the medium extra tall. I have eyed up that a few times. That would be cool. I would definitely feel confident in putting Lyra in it just because I know she uses up all this room. Now, as for babies, as I said, I've never actually kept a Crested Gecko that's under 6 months old, so I can't say I have a lot of experience with this. I just know they're really tiny, and though you may be able to start them off in a 45 by 45 by 60 tank, there is a chance you might lose them, or maybe they won't find their food. I don't know. So I know it's recommended that 30 by 35 45 centimeter tank is usually good for hatchlings. The one I have here is actually a Habitat 30 by 30 by 30 cube. This is just for my beetles. I don't think I'd recommend this for a hatchling, but that is sometimes a size people will start their geckos on, and obviously that's only for a short period of time, so if you can get one of those tanks second hand, then perfect. Also, whilst we're here looking at this tank, a quick tip: when choosing a tank, if you are going to be using UV, don't get a tank with black mesh, because mesh in general will block out a lot of UV, but black mesh is really bad for it. So obviously when you're using a UV lamp, you get the reflector kit. That's great for normal mesh, but black mesh in particular doesn't let a lot pass through. So I was looking into getting maybe a Habitat tank for Drogo, and then I read about that and I already provide him with UV, and I was like, maybe not. Whilst I'm here filming, I did just want to add that I've recently seen that Zen Habitats is trying to market some of their tanks towards Crested Geckos. What concerns me, and when I've raised concerns about the mesh before, is they use galvanized steel, which even some of the more questionable brands don't use galvanized steel. It's like something you just don't use on tanks. It blocks out a lot of UV, but also if it gets wet, gets misted, it can produce zinc oxide. And when I've raised this concern before, people were like, well, the Zen Habitats enclosures are made for arid species, so it concerns me that they're now sort of marketing towards Crested Geckos, because you don't want your gecko licking that zinc oxide. It's inevitable that water will get on the mesh, so if you are going to get one of those tanks, I would replace the mesh. And I know some people won't be happy because they have affiliate links and everything with the company, and the company sends out free tanks all the time. I could have become a UK affiliate, but I didn't feel comfortable advertising something I didn't deem to be completely safe. So I just wanted to point that out in case you've got into the hype of getting one of those tanks. Anyway, back to tanks. So if you have a baby, now I can't talk from experience, but I can talk from what I would probably do as a setup, is keep it quite simple. So obviously they'll probably be only in this setup for about 6 months, so I don't want to establish a big bioactive tank. I'd probably keep it quite simple. I'd probably still use substrate, only because it gets really dry, especially here, if you just use paper towel. So I'd probably still use substrate, maybe some fake plants on the side of the glass, some branches to allow them to climb, a coconut hide because they love to sleep in it, and I'll just kind of try to keep it simple so it's easy to find that gecko. The gecko can easily find its food. As you move to juveniles and adults, so somewhere I have a bit more experience with, you can start to add more into the mix, especially if you have a bigger tank. Like if the juveniles are decent size, I know some crested geckos get stunted growth, but if it's a decent size, you can go into those bigger tanks. And you can add, you know, cork planters and vines and obviously substrate, fake plants, maybe real plants. Because if it's in a bigger tank, you can go bioactive, and as the gecko grows, the tank's growing as well. You know, all those plants are growing, and it can really feel comfortable in its home. So don't be afraid to put a juvenile, if it's a decent size, into a tank which it will grow into as an adult. I also do have a whole video on putting a bioactive tank together step by step, as well as a video about safe plants for crested gecko, so I'll leave all those links below if you want to check them out. But for me, the biggest mistake I see with crested gecko tanks is just not enough climbing opportunities. Now of course they can climb on the glass, but we don't really want them to rely on that all the time. So if you can, try to get branches, try to get vines. This branch is a lucky reptile branch. I can cut it down a bit. I can probably wedge it in diagonally into a tank so I don't need to glue it in. It's nice and big, it provides a climbing area, and it should be quite secure. If you can make your own background, once again, I have a video on this, it's even better because you can build those branches into the background, so there's lots of different places for your geckos to climb. But if you are struggling to fill out that area at the top, then as I said, a coconut hide, you can take that down from the mesh and it can hang there, and they love it. Now, how to ensure your gecko uses all of this room if you're going to provide it with a bigger tank. Depending on where you are in the world, it may require a heat source. I know we get told all the time that, oh, they just need room temperature. Once again, I've done a video on this. Crested geckos can actually benefit from a heat source. I use a deep heat projector with Lyra. It really fully energizes her. She will actively lay under it. Sometimes in the day, sometimes at night. She's not constantly under it. When she wants to top up, she'll go under it. This is especially helpful in autumn and winter time because people will be like, my crested gecko's not really eating, it's not really moving, it's probably not got enough heat. And obviously I'm from England, so although it can get pretty hot in summer here sometimes, generally it's cooler. So I have experience with that, but when I get people comment from countries that generally are hotter than what the crested gecko requires, I don't have experience there. You might just need a fan. You might need to ask breeders in your local area what they do. Maybe you have aircon. Yeah. But I don't know. A heat source for me is a game changer for crested geckos. Even if it's on just a little bit, it makes a massive difference. I also have the new Shade Dweller Arboreal UV kit with Lyra here. I also have the Jungle Dawn LED bar to support plant growth. And even if you're not going bioactive, I think if you use an LED lamp, it will work well with illuminating the tank. So the gecko will at least know day from night. So with the heat and the light, this can really help make sure your gecko uses its tank. One thing we can't overlook is just the normal natural behaviour of the crested gecko. So you'll probably find that if you've just recently got a new crested gecko, it doesn't seem to move, and every time you leave the room and come back it's in a different place, but you never see it move. That is normal. When they get used to you, they start to feel comfortable, especially if it's darker in the room. You'll start to see them walk around, and you never know, they might even come up to you when you call them someday. I know Lyra does that to me a lot, and people want to do that with their crested gecko. I have had Lyra for quite a few years, so you know, we've established that bond. Please don't get disheartened if your gecko doesn't do that straight away. But if you're in a room at night and you've just got a lamp on, just a little lamp, you might see them crawl around, and they are incredibly active and they can whiz up those walls. So don't be disheartened if you don't see them move and you think, oh, they're not using all this room, because that's sort of their nature. Even now, I've had Drogo, my Chihuahua, for quite a while, and when the light comes on in the room, sometimes he still won't even move, but I know he uses his space. And as I mentioned in the leopard gecko version of this video, if you have a night vision camera, you can probably spy on them at night and see how active they really are, and it's amazing to see. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, please subscribe, but thank you for watching and goodbye.